Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking, and this is a special video. This one will be representing flashbackable memories, or lots of memories and highlighting moments from 2023, now that we're really rolling into fruition with the 2024 calendar year. And I must say, 2023 has certainly been a wonderful year. One of the most wonderful things about 2023 was my grandmother's special birthday, which was back in January. My elderly grandmother, the widow of my wonderful, wonderful late grandfather Edmund, who sadly passed away back in February 2020, as most of you may already know. So many memories, with many wonderful events. Hove Park Miniature Railway, Eastbourne Miniature Steam Railway, a little bit of a few rail enthusiast train spotting from time to time, though not always. Few family gatherings and all that. So, yes, of course. And one of the first events was Hove Park Miniature Railway. Although it's not really an event, it happens more than once every single year, generally starting in March and finishes off generally in October, because they do not run in November, December, January or February. They do not run during those periods, And also I had the good fortune of finding out about many wonderful events that I had not attended before in 2023. Until 2023 that was, and looking forward to going there again in 2024. And there was an event I was going to go to right at the beginning of April of 2023, but the event got cancelled because the event site sadly got waterlogged, and that was a real disappointment. And I was a little bit irritated and upset that I could not go. And David, my best friend, who was also going to go, he too was under a lot of disappointment as well. So the first event really was Hove Park Miniature Railway on Saturday of the 25th of March 2023, and I went to more or less every single one, although two sadly got cancelled off because of dodgy weather conditions. And one I couldn't go to because I had to go to a birthday, and then I had a family gathering the very next day afterwards. So, yeah. Yes. So that's alright, And it was twice in one, I think it was about twice in 1 year, that I went to Eastbourne Miniature Steam Railway, which was below the target I'd aimed for, as I would really like to go more than twice next year. And one of the things I did not quite achieve was going to Man Gaps and Withal Transport Museum, but I'm certainly going to make up for it in 2024, almost certainly indeed. Just to say, And also one brilliant moment of 2023 was the King's coronation, and I watched it on the television, by the way, on the 6th of May of 2023, and goodness was it a wonderful televised event when I saw it happening. And when I saw King Charles III being crowned on the live television as the coronation progressed, I literally just clapped in cheer and said, "God save the King!" When I saw it on the television, I was so celebrated and so happy for His Majesty the King. I just clapped, "God save the King! God save the King! God save the King!" Yes, and long live our noble King! God save the King! What's next? Oh, yes, many, many wonderful things. But the first event outside of the Hove Park Miniature Railway was, sorry, my mistake. The first event really, it's really better to focus on events outside of Hove Park Miniature Railway because it happens more than once every year, generally speaking, the Hove Park Miniature Railway, as truth has things, generally, that is. First event was the East Grinstead LT country bus rally. I didn't ride on any of the buses for the excursion this time, but I'm certainly going to do it this time next year. No, this year, sorry, in 2024. We are already in 2024, sorry. I'm going to have a ride on their bus excursions in 2024, should chance allow, either once or twice, but I do want to get footage of also the general buses in the East Grinstead as well, And one wonderful surprise I had at East Grinstead LT Country Bus Rally was I had a fan encounter from a bus enthusiast, and we both said hello and all that, and we even did some some funny Brian Blessed impressions together, and then he was like doing the Brian Blessed swearing impression, and I did the same thing too. I'm not going to repeat it on video, because David and Kim might be watching, and they would not take terribly kindly to it if I did it. But we had fun and all that, and we said our hellos and all that. He was a nice guy, I must say. He was very friendly and very nice. I'm not sure what his YouTube channel is. I forgot what it is, but I'm sure he'll tell me if he watches the very video. And obviously, as usual, from time to time, watching Dave and Sally Abel whenever I could make their live stream, but obviously I missed quite a lot because of events that has coincided with the very day of their live streaming events, as the spring and summer and autumn progressed, And their final one of 2023 I sadly missed because of a family gathering event I had. Yes, but never mind. I at least managed to view them at least a good few times throughout 2023, that was. I did what I did. But I was more than happy. I always watched the replay and I always said that was a brilliant replay, I must say. Well done. Both of you, indeed. But I now always have a heart for Dave and Sally because they're wonderful friends, and I certainly have not taken my friendship with them for granted, as the same could be said with all of my other wonderful friends. I've made wonderful friends because of them in the last nearly 4 years that I've known and followed them. Even though I've got wonderful friends from Dave and Sally, there's one friend, and only one truly excellent and enchanted friend, who is an elated delight, who is none other than that of lovely Heather from Canada, who I may or may not have said before, just to say. And I'm always fortunate, and I've just got the terribly good fortune to be friends with such a wonderful, lovely lady and former model, as far as I'm certain. No offence in saying that, but sadly I could never have modelled because I was never tall enough. No, 5'8" and 11 stone, or 154 pounds. I don't think I'd be a good fit for it, no, because I think even for a lady you'd have to be taller than that to be a model, and for a man much taller, as I don't stand a chance, and neither does my mother either. Even though she has the good looks for it, she does not stand a chance for modelling because she's actually shorter than me, just to say. Well, not only is she shorter than I am, but all of her brothers and sisters are also all shorter than I am too. So we don't stand a chance for modelling, and neither do my grandmothers, who are really quite short. Never mind. So, yes. But the East Grinstead LT Country Bus Rally was great fun, and I enjoyed it. And it was wonderful to reprise my presence there after going there in 2022 and going there again in 2023. And then the following week was Eastbourne Magnificent Motors, and that was fun. And there's a highlighting moment from Eastbourne Magnificent Motors 2023, and that highlighting moment was encountering none other than an enchanting classic car enthusiast, Dave Bryan. I immediately recognised him once I saw him, because before his YouTube account used to have a picture of him, and I recognised his face. But I was not expecting him to be a little shorter than I am, but I was just expecting to see whatever appearance he had. I mean, he's not that short. He was about 5'6", 5'6.5", something like that. He's not he's not very short. I mean, he's definitely taller than that of 5'4.5" David Scott, my best friend. He was definitely taller than David, I would certainly say that, because David Scott is a short 5'4.5". But no offence, David, I don't mean any offence saying that, you know. He's not short, but not very tall, is how I describe Dave Bryan. And quite thin, roughly about 9 stone, I would imagine, maybe 9.5 stone, something like that. I don't know what his weight measurement is, but he's fairly, well, reasonably skinny to quite thin is how I describe him, and not very tall, but a nice full head of brown hair and glasses, and I honestly thought he had hazel eyes, but he said, no, I'm pretty sure my eyes were brown. I was like, do you have hazel eyes, Dave? He's like, no, I've always been aware my eyes were brown. I was like, oh, they look very hazel. They look almost like my late grandfather's eyes, just to say. Whereas I'm very dark brown eyes and completely dark hair. Well, it's going grey now, but only for the last 5 years. But I think in another 5-10 years I'm just going to be very grey. Oh dear. It's what happens as one gets older. Oh dear. Yes, and even Dave was very happy to have met Dave Bryan, because Dave Bryan originally found out about David's content, just to say. And then when I met Dave Bryan, I was like, I've got to introduce you to David Scott, who has the Wheels, Wheels, Wheels channel. And once I saw David and then Dave, I was like, oh, David, I've got someone to introduce you to. Or was it Dave, I said. And then I took either one of them to meet each other, and then they both happily greeted each other, both David and Dave. They happily greeted each other, and seeing them happily greeting each other, it was like seeing them all, they should have met quite a long time ago and should have been friends a long time ago, because of the classic car enthusiasm they have possessed in themselves, you know. So it was a wonderful highlighting moment being at the Eastbourne Magnificent Motors 2023 event. That was so, and it was a good meeting Dave, and it's always a fantastic friendly chemistry of a meet whenever meeting David Scott, I must say. So, yes, it was wonderful. And also I had the good fortune of experiencing the classic cars. Obviously, even though I'm not completely height and weight friendly for the small classic cars, that was, I didn't pose inside and out the small classic cars at Eastbourne Magnificent Motors this time. But I sat, well, one fairly small one, it was an Austin, but obviously, owing height and weight, and also big feet as well, I had to be careful to clamber inside and out. Well, I'm not the only one who has big feet, but Dave Bryan apparently has big feet as well, even though he's not considerably, but quite a little bit shorter than I am. But he's not but taller than that of David Scott, just to say. You know, but I've got big feet to match at size 8 UK or 9 US or EU 42. But Dave Bryan, on the other hand, who, despite being, I would say he's around about 5'6", 5'6.5", despite being in roughly that height range, that's what I would have thought he was in that height range when I saw him. He, surprisingly, takes a size 9 UK, or 10 in the US, or an EU 43, much to my surprise, as I didn't realise he had big feet. I really didn't, and I never would have thought that when I saw him. You know, I would have thought he took either a size 6 or a size 7, or possibly an 8 at the very biggest, and he said, and I was talking to him about the disadvantage of classic cars. He said, well, myself has big feet, I take a size 9, despite being not very tall. I was like, really? Oh my goodness, I didn't realise you had a size 9. But I take the same size feet as my 2 5'6" uncles, who also take a size 8. And obviously, because of me having big feet, I have to be careful. I don't always have sufficient footrest in a small classic car. And I sat in a small classic convertible at the Eastbourne Magnificent Motors event. But, you know, I had to, even though there was no roof on it, you know, I had to, because it was small and no down, I had to be careful. I just had to be careful that I didn't fall face first into the gear stick or floor pedals owing to height and weight and big feet. But never mind, because the footrest was not terribly sufficient unless I pulled the seat back. But obviously I could not pull the seat back because I wouldn't have had permission to have done so. Never mind. You know. But Dave Bryan and David Scott wouldn't need to worry about being careful to clamber inside and out of small classic cars, as they're both shorter than me, and David did not overshoot the 5'6" height range, and also my mother's side of the family did not overshoot the 5'6" range. So they'd be okay, but it's me, as well as my brother and my father, we'd have to be careful to clamber inside and out of small classic cars. As well as my friends who are either my height or taller than I am, we'd have to be careful to clamber inside and out of small classic cars, as well as being careful not to fall over face first into a gear stick or floor pedals when it comes to a small classic convertible. In a way, we sort of envy the ones who are 5'6" or shorter in terms of being able to get in and out of small classic cars. And every classic car owner I've met who are either my height or certainly taller than I am, because I have met quite a few tall classic car owners, they often share my, my envy, really, of, sort of share the disadvantages I found, because they've experienced the same sort of thing I have. They're like, I said, we have to stoop in to get in and out. So some of the tall ones would say, and I was like, owing to height and weight, that is when I respond. I was like, no, you really could be right, as some would say, I think they more or less get my, the envy I'd have to getting inside and out. I think they more or less get the difficulty I've experienced to clamber inside and out of small classic cars, with roofs built over their head, as well as small classic convertibles. Well, small classic convertibles are slightly easier to clamber inside and out, but just you have to be careful. If you're, say, if you've overshot the 5'6" range, it's just, it's be careful you don't fall face first into the gear stick or floor pedals. That's if you've overshot the 5'6" range. But I think if you're 5'6" and you're at the 5'6" height, you wouldn't need to worry. Or if you're any height shorter, I would think you almost certainly wouldn't need to worry about being careful. But in a way, it wouldn't stop me to envy you. But no offence, all the same. Never mind. But the bigger classic cars, like say a Chevy or a Dodge, or any classic manufactured make that's big or even huge, like that of a Dodge or a Chevy, that I could just clamber inside and out easily and not worry about having to take things steadily and carefully. But never mind. Not only are they much easier to clamber inside and out of, but you get sufficient footrest if your feet have exceeded a size. I would say if they've exceeded size 7 UK, you definitely have good footrest, because I'm in 8 UK, that is. But I have got a friend who's got absolutely enormously huge feet, and that's Tommy Gardiner, who once he said he was 6'2" and size 13 feet, which is the same as that of my friend Stephen Magnus, who is 6'2" and size 13. But then he had to correct things with me. Tommy Gardiner did. He said, well, you're very close, guessing my height and shoe size measurement. He said, but actually, I'm 6'3" and I take size 15 feet shoe size. And I was like, what? You're a size 15? UK at only 6'3"? I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, that is just insanely huge. Size 15 at 6'3", oh my goodness, that is insanely huge. But obviously, height does not determine the size of your feet. It's your genetics that determine the size of your feet. So we got my friend Stephen, who's 6'2", size 13 UK. He's a new friend of mine from Graham and Fiona, just to say. And Tommy Gardiner, who's 6'3" and size 15 UK, whereas Hutchie would probably say, he'd say, oh, size 15 feet is huge. How on earth do you even get to have size 15 feet? He'd probably say something like that, you know. Never mind. Oh dear. But you know, it's what happens. Our hereditary and genetics play the part in our height and the size of our feet and our bodily proportions and facial features and head of hair, hair colour and all that, or whether we go bald or recede, that sort of thing. You know, it's what happens. But it was a wonderful time, Eastbourne Magnificent Motors. Obviously the next following week was the King's coronation on the television, and which I thoroughly enjoyed, and enjoyed watching every minute and moment of it. And then the next day came a wonderful, wonderful surprise. The next day, it was about a few short days after I'd uploaded a video, and there, from that video, was my first ever encounter with Graham the Baron Hesketh. At first it was immense disappointment on the video, but obviously he had every right to, because I don't think I did it terribly well. But I said, I can always improve. I can always try every time to improve. But then we conversed together, we bonded. He spoke to me about when he and Fiona lived in Brighton and when he lived in Brighton. And then he spoke to me all about Fiona and all that, and he spoke to me about other interesting things. So we had a conversed conversation despite the initial disappointment in the videography footage I'd shot from that very video. And some of the stories he had to share with me were nothing more than mind-blowing, but yet extraordinary stories. I was like, my goodness, this man has had a very interesting life. You know, I mean, despite the bad history from the backstory he had to share, it really was deeply interesting, but it did at first make me slightly apprehensive about accepting him into my life. But as we conversed, you know, and then the next time I heard from him, I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to possess a friendship with Graham and hopefully his lovely wife Fiona in the future. He really is very friendly and he is very interesting. And the next time I heard from him, the comment I received from him, it was like he was taking me under his wing. And the more times I heard from him, the more I felt, from the comments I'd received from Graham himself, I really felt like he was taking me under his wing quite a lot, you know, and really, and we had some friendly chemistry. I mean, it was profound, and something I'm hugely appreciatively thankful and grateful for indeed, really I am. And when he got to watching the fun inspirational chats I did, he was like, I could see the interest he was taking in me, and I was happy with it. And in a way, that's how our friendship began. First from initial disappointment to now friendly chemistry and good friends. And when he's learned I attend events and take walks around certain parts of the Brighton and Hove region and videos of my cats, he was like, oh, wow. I was like, well, thank you so much, Graham, for your friendly comments. And eventually, before long, he ended up looking at the community post of some pictures of me I have of me from attending certain classic car running events and all the rest of things. Well, thank you so much, Graham. I did actually get to Graham's channel back in May of 2023, though at that point I only viewed one video. But but because I was still a little bit apprehensive and shy at the time, I only watched a video but I never commented. But when I looked back at the video months later, I eventually commented on it. But I feel just so silly now for feeling so deeply apprehensive when I first heard of his and Fiona's backstory. You know, I was so apprehensive, but yet once I really began hearing from Graham more, and as we bonded more, I really felt, you know, we could be good friends, and we are good, wonderful friends, and we are going to one day meet one day in the future. And so, you know, and I heard from him more and more times, and then when I learned he did live streaming videos, I'm like, oh wow, I'm going to come over one day, you know. But then within the next few weeks I went to the London to Brighton mini, well, at London to Brighton Classic Mini Run, I think is what it's called, on the 21st of May of 2023, and had the great pleasure of attending it. Met a nice Jersey couple who had the mini car, fairly tall. Well, the wife was about my height and the husband was about 5'10", 5'11", something like that. And they had a small mini. And I'm like, I said, just do be careful how you get in and out. I said, oh yes we are, because they're not built for our height, are we? The wife said, I said, no, you're too right. I said, even me, 5'8" and 11 stone, I have to be careful to get inside and out of the classic car, the classic mini, let alone that, because they're tiny. They understood the shared troubles, you know. So, yes. No, never mind, you know. But they were friendly and they sort of got the troubles I had to share. Lovely couple, and certainly a lovely lady and a nice husband all the same. They both were happy to have met me and they were welcoming and quite really very accepting. They were a very accepting couple. So whenever someone takes an interest in their car or classic cars, like a classic car enthusiast, if they ever meet a classic car enthusiast, well, I could be wrong for other people, but from my experience I'm speaking, they were very accepting and friendly and warm towards me, and I found it emotionally, slightly emotionally investing, but in a happy way, because I felt a newfound friendship with them both. I really did, you know. I met many wonderful classic mini car enthusiasts, and I even met a classic mini owner from the Worthing Minis by the Sea 2022 event. I saw them at that event too, and this time I conversed a bit more with them, you know, and it was quite happy conversations and all that. And the wife did tell me that they'd actually done Minis by the Sea long before 2022, and I was amazed by learning it. I was like, really? I was like, I would have thought 2022 was your first time. And she's like, no, we've done it for a long time. It was a tall couple who had to have been the husband. He had to have been, what, a full 6 foot or something like that, you know. And the wife, what, no shorter than 5'10" and a half, something like that, you know. And then they had this small mini. And I said, the only issue with the small classic minis, and they sort of obviously got this, and the wife certainly got it. She said, do tell me about it. We've both banged our heads many times with our minis when trying to get in and out of it because of our height and weight. I was like, I'm not surprised. I said, that's why I'm careful to get in and out of it, because of my height and weight as well. They sort of got the troubles I've experienced, you know, to clamber inside and out of small minis. Well, no, but yes, the wife was well, from what I saw, she was easily no shorter than 5'10" and a half, and fairly reasonably skinny, not painfully skinny. She had a similar sort of structural figural build to my mother, which is a reasonably skinny sort of build, but obviously much taller than that of my mother, as my mother's not very tall in height. But she obviously would not have a problem to get in and out of a small classic mini, since she did not overshoot the 5'6" height range, so she'd be okay for it. And also she's not only shorter than I am, but also she's a bit smaller than I am in structural figure. So one could say she's a reasonably skinny lady, my mother is, as is her sister, my auntie, her older sister. But her brothers, on the other hand, though they never overshot 5'6" in height, they're like great big stocky men. I mean, was like really great big stocky men. A bit overweight, little bit overweight to some extent, but you know, but they're just generally stocky, sturdily built men. Whenever one sees them, one I could say is a miniature shack to some extent. That's my Uncle Mark, who's like a 5'6" miniature shack, because he's got a very big, not quite huge structural build with what Shaq has, and obviously certainly not 7'1" like that of Shaq. Because Shaq, who's a bloody hell 7'1", 325 pounds, or which is about 23 stone, I think it is, or well over 23 stone, something like that. Nothing but huge. I mean, oh my goodness, what a huge weight to beat. Oh, God. You know, but we had a friendly catch-up and all that with the couple, and I met other Mini owners, and even the tall couple with the Mini car. The wife was around about 5'10.5", I think, something like that, so I never asked her height, but the husband, he had to have been no shorter than half an inch over 6 feet, or no taller than 6'1", something like that. So both quite tall couple, as from what I'd seen. And they let me happily sit inside and out of their small classic Mini from time to time. And I even sat inside and out some other small classic Minis too. And I've even got a picture of me sitting, which I like to think of it as a publicity picture of mine, sitting in a classic Mini, which I posted not a few short days before 2024 started. It's on the community post if you scroll down, and you see a picture of me sitting in the red Mini. I might even represent the very picture just before the very video has ended, just to say, you know. And it was not, I mean, it's different once, as not just for a small classic Mini or any small classic car with a roof built over it. It's different once you've sat inside it, but it's getting inside and out, and the footrest, if you've got bigger, if your feet have, say, overshot the size 7 UK, that's obviously the difficulty, because if your feet are, say, size 8, like mine, 8 UK that is, or bigger than that, obviously you don't find sufficient footrest unless you've pulled the seat back. But, you know, it's getting inside and out. Certainly if you're taller than 5'6", it's really getting inside and out. That's the tricky part. You know, and it's completely different once you've sat inside it, that's all. It's different once you're sat inside, but obviously the difficulty once sat inside is the lack of footrest if your feet are bigger than a certain size, that is, you know. Just to share, but you may have different experiences, but I thought I might share the slight, not necessarily chilled warning, but a video as a means of giving some helpfully handy advice in the way Graham would give either myself or any YouTuber he watches some helpfully handy, useful advice. And as well, Fiona would more or less do something similar too. Well, at least I think so, but I could be wrong. Sorry, Fiona, if I got it terribly wrong. I didn't mean it. All I meant was good when sharing this sentiment, that was, you know. But then but obviously before the Mini run, I did experience some trouble. The trouble I experienced was my mother had an accident a week before the London to Brighton Mini run, and then she had to go to hospital as a result, and because she had a fracture in her neck bone collar. She was in the kitchen, she passed out and fell over and fainted temporarily. Fortunately, she went to hospital, and she had to wear a neck collar for the next 6 weeks, and that was very difficult for her, I must say. No, really, and I was deeply as you could imagine, I was deeply distressed with the whole ordeal. She eventually managed to do more things and could do other stuff and all that, but things like doing certain stuff I had to help her with, get through, and certain arbitrary tasks I had to help her, as did my brother, had to help her with a little more and all that, you know. She eventually got better from the neck injury. She's fortunately okay and doing well, but then she ended up having a cancer scare shortly after, and then got so ill she had to go to hospital for some medical attention. We're going to hospital again. And with the cancer scare, because they could not diagnose or rule out the cancer unless she had about 1 or 2 biopsy appointments, and that was painfully, greatly frightening. Not only was I frightened, but I was deeply, deeply worried and distressed, because I honestly thought my mother had terminal cancer, and they could not diagnose it for a great few weeks, and that frightened me deeply, because I actually thought my mother had terminal cancer at that point. But fortunately, after about 1 or 2 biopsy appointments, because she had a lump in her throat, and that's why they couldn't rule out cancer, but after 1 or 2 biopsy appointments, fortunately she got completely cleared and was and they could rule out the cancer. So fortunately, thank goodness, my mother did not have cancer, but that really, really did frighten me deeply, the whole ordeal, as it did with my whole family. It certainly frightened them deeply as well. But she was better in time for a special birthday I had to go to, and I had a wonderful time there. And all that, and the family gathering, because my auntie had come over from Nicaragua. Yes, so myself, my brother, my father and I, and my auntie and her 2 children, my younger cousins, and my auntie and her 2 twin children, my younger cousins, went to visit my grandmother at my grandmother's home residency, which was where we had the gathering all together, you know. And that was a fun event. Sort of skipped a bit ahead, but I won't repeat that story again, so I skipped a little ahead. And you know, over the next week, because I skipped a bit ahead, over the next week, you know, on the 27th of May of 2023, that was, I went to the Norton Spring Cuckoo Fair event. David didn't go on that very day because he was attending the Brand Hatch event, but I think he went the next day, I don't know, you know, because sometimes Brand Hatch coincides with Norton, so there'd be one day he'd almost likely go to Brands Hatch and the next day to the Norton event. So, you know, he went to that event. But I only went to Norton on one of the days, because the next day I met up with my friend Shahiba for a nice long walk, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. We always thoroughly enjoy our walks, and hopefully sometime in 2024 we'll have a nice walk together when the weather's nicer, in say the spring or so of 2024. You know, but Norton really was fun, and I had a highlighting moment as I met someone who follows my content, but he said he does not, I don't think he has a YouTube channel, but I think for whenever he does create a YouTube account, I would almost certainly be hearing from him, and I'll be able to tell you about him, because he's a good friend. The moment we met, we had almost instant friendly chemistry together, and I really felt a good sense of friendship with him. I really did. He said, you do, I think he said something, I can't remember what it was. I think he said, you know, you do well with the videos you do and the videos you provide for these events. Keep going with it, and that sort of thing. I think that's what he said, something like that. I cannot quite remember. And we had a friendly greeting and shook hands, all that. He's quite a bit older than I am, just to say, because, you know, and he obviously was not, and he wasn't surprised, and he was, you know, wasn't surprised when I told him I was younger than a certain age, you know. Although I don't feel all that young. I certainly don't feel as young as I used to, you know. Aches and pains in the bones, creaks and crumbles. I cannot run very far, feeling the cold a lot. No. And I'm fortunate to have a full head of hair and good health at least, but I'm not terribly fortunate with other things health-wise, but I'm all right, all the same, but not everybody is fortunate with health, and I do not take my health for granted, because my mother, growing up, was really not fortunate with health, and was a very sickly child growing up as a little girl. My poor mother, you know. And also my grandmother Margaret, because my mum, I remember mum telling me fairly recently, she overheard a conversation, her mother, my grandmother Margaret, who's still alive as of 2024, but she's very old now, she's a very old lady. Now, she once overheard my grandmother having a conversation talking about my mother, and she said that my mother gets ill a lot. She remembered my grandmother saying that. She's like, she's so ill a lot. A very sickly child. But it wasn't my mother's fault. I don't blame her. And I feel very sorry for her for it, you know. So yes. You know, but I had a good encounter with my good new friend. I think he owns a classic bus, as far as I'm certain. As far as I'm aware, but he'll be able to tell me. But I think if he creates a YouTube channel or a YouTube account, I don't know if he will or not, but he may well. We shall see. We shall see. I'm pretty sure he'll conceivably be able to conceivably clarify that he either does or doesn't have a classic vintage vehicle, being a classic bus or what have you. But because I'm not completely certain and cannot quite remember, but I'm sure he'll tell me. Not to worry. Not to worry. And what's next? Obviously more Hoof Punk and Shiroi. Oh yes, within the next week it was Tinker's Park Rally event on Saturday of the 3rd of June of 2023. Myself and David, obviously myself, I went and David Scott went. I relished the thrill in attending Tinker's Park, I really did. And obviously exploring the Tinker's Park showgrounds, looking at the classic cars and vintage buses to be seen there, and having a ride on its narrow gauge railway and steam railway, and obviously experiencing and savouring the thrill of the musical vintage organs that were to be seen at Tinker's Park. Honestly, I just relished the thrill in listening to the lush and wonderful sounds of the vintage fairground organs, whether that be Tinker's Park, Lawton Rally, Broyle, Headingley, Pardon Park. Oh, they are enchanted, these vintage organs. They are truly enchanting and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful organs. I just love them so much. Oh my goodness. I've got goosebumps with these vintage organs. I really do. Especially when going to Tinker's Park, Lawton Rally, Headingley, Broyle, Pardon Park. Oh, those enchanting events. I just love them. And for those of you who are based in the United Kingdom, be it England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, if you ever want to go to the south of England, I thoroughly recommend Tinker's Park, Lawton Rally, Pardon Park, Broyle, Headingley. I recommend those vintage rallies very, very much if you want to get and hear a good vintage organ like that of the Gavioli 87 key fairground organ, or you know, the Waldrick, A. Ruth and Son Waldrick, or the Mortier, or the Richter, you know, or the Tulip. Those kinds of fascinating and enchanting organs. They're just wonderful, and they're marvellous, wonderful sounds they give, and they represent a lot of history too, those wonderful, very, very century-old organs. They're just wonderful, these organs. Oh my. Okay, now moving on, you know. Obviously it was just truly enchanting, and I was just elated to reprise my presence at Tinker's Park again in 2023 after going there in 2022. And I'm to be attending there again in 2024, and I'm very, very much looking forward to going there in 2024. Indeed, Indeed I am, yes. And what's next? Oh yes, the next day it was the London to Brighton Classic Car Run. I think it's London to Brighton Kitten Sports Classic Car Run, as far as I'm certain, and that was a wonderful highlighting event. That was the first time I'd ever attended this event, and I'm due to go there again when it takes place again on Madeira Drive, Brighton, in June of 2024. So Sunday, 4th of June 2023, it was the London to Brighton Kitten Sports Classic Car Run, and I think I got there either reasonably early or about right timing to see the cars arriving into Madeira Drive, and that was wonderful. And I even saw a huge Chevy, which really, and it was only built in 1957, but the size of it was nothing but huge. I was really deeply surprised and very taken by the size of the car. Really, it was a grey 1957 American Chevy, but huge size. Very nice looking car all the same. But not only that, on a maybe not so surprising, but slightly surprising and not terribly surprising at the same time, it was owned by a very tall couple. A obviously very tall husband, but a very tall wife and daughter, who had to have been what? But very tall, who had to have been what? A full 6 foot, or something like that, Oh my goodness, no, I was taken by surprise, No, the wife, the wife, and the daughter, they had to have been definitely at least 6 foot. Well, certainly no shorter than 6 foot, I must say, as the wife and daughter were about the same height, and both definitely taller than I, and being only 5'8" in height. But the thing that the wife, or the daughter's mother, the tall daughter's mother, and I, the thing we had in common is we're both the same weight. We both share the same heavy 11 stone or 154 pound or 70 kilogram weight structural figure, despite our height difference. Because I was talking to her because she wasn't in the Chevy at the time when I saw her. I was walking along Madeira Drive, and I saw her and her daughter taking a few photograph pictures on their telephones, and all smart telephones, that was. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, have I got in your way? I was like, oh, no. I think it was either the wife and the daughter or myself who apologised because we thought we inadvertently caused an obstruction, but we didn't, but we were just trying to be polite and all that, not to get in the way of one's videography or graphically photographed shot when experiencing the event and all that. So like, oh, no, we're okay and all that. And I was like, and all that. But then after, the initial, it wasn't a bad mishap, we were just trying to be mutually friendly together, which we were, not to worry, it wasn't a bad encounter, it was a good encounter, and we were talking together, the wife looked at me and I looked at her, and we actually began walking together along Madeira Drive, but I didn't talk to the daughter, it was only the wife I was talking to, but I don't think the daughter had anything against me, but she was very shy. She was a very deeply shy girl. I mean, very tall, obviously, as I said before, but no shorter than 6 foot, much to my surprise. She had to have been about maybe 17 or so, 16, something like that. She looked very young. I don't know how old the wife was. I'm pretty sure she must be in her 40s, I imagine. She looked about maybe 37, 38, something like that, but I think in reality she'd be in her 40s, but though very tall, no shorter than 6 foot, and my 11 stone weight figure, but I never asked her height, but she had to have been easily no shorter than 6 foot. She was actually very nice looking, and a nice full head of blonde hair, I must say, and we were walking. After we looked at each other, we began talking and all that. And obviously, and then when we were talking classic cars and things and all that, and the interest, I even shared the advantages and disadvantages, which she thoroughly understood the disadvantage I shared with her. And then that's when she said, because I mentioned my height and weight as a disadvantage to being able to easily clamber inside and out of small classic cars. And she was like, and that was when she responded by saying, I'm 11 stone as well. I was like, really? Well, I pretended to be surprised. It did not surprise me that she was my sort of weight figure, because she was easily a heavier structural weight than my mother, I would say, because I don't know what my mother's weight is, because she doesn't weigh herself. She's got to be about 9.5, 10 stone easily, something like that, smaller than I am, for sure, you know. Sorry about that, everybody. I had to change the battery of my camera because the battery ran out. But where was I? Oh, yes. I was on the London to Brighton Kit and Sport Classic Car Run 2023, Madeira Drive, Brighton, Sunday, 4th of June 2023. You know, as we walked along further down Madeira Drive, myself, the lovely wife, and alongside the daughter, but I wasn't having some chats with the daughter, it was just the mother of the wife, just to say. We continued our friendly chats, and once we got to where their Chevy was parked, but the thing when I shared with them the disadvantage of small classic cars owing to one's overshooting a certain height and certain weight, and when she said that she was, much to my surprise, well, I wasn't surprised, I pretended to be surprised, that she was the same weight as me. She was like, because we're tall, we have a big classic car. I was like, really? You've got a big one? What's that? I said, we've got the Chevy. And then, you know, we continued walking, we continued our chats of classic car interest and all sorts of wonderful, lovely things, and me pointing out to her that this was at least as far as I can remember, trying to go back down memory lane, that this event was the first one I'd ever been to, the first London to Brighton Kit and Sports Classic Car event I'd ever been to, you know, and that I was looking forward to going to the next one and the future ones to come. So, and then we got to where the Chevy was parked, but her husband and their daughter, they were to be meeting up with a friend on Madeira Drive, and they were like, we're to be meeting a friend now. I was like, and I think we were like, okay, goodbye, see, talk soon, that sort of thing. Okay, bye, talk soon. You know, it was like chemistry we had. It was like some almost profound, friendly chemistry. You know, we were talking as if we were old friends already. The bonding we had was deeply profound. And yet we'd only just met the very day, even though she was quite a lot taller than I was, you know. It was not an issue for us, our height and physical attributes. I think what really mattered to us was that we conversed kindly together, and it was a friendly conversation we had. You know, but somebody, despite our height difference, somebody tell me how our somewhat newfound friendship worked out, you know. I mean, my best friend, David Scott, is 5'4.5", and I'm 5'8". Somebody tell me how our friendship works out. Because what matters most is what the person's like inside when you're talking to them and when you meet and encounter them and all that. That is what is most immensely important and what deeply, deeply matters, you know. You know, so then their daughter, with the couple and their daughter, went off to meet their friend, and I began observing the wonderful, wonderful event itself. Oh my goodness, did I have a wonderful time. I even met many other wonderful classic car owners, had some friendly chats and stuff regarding classic car interests and all that, the advantages and disadvantages of classic cars and all the rest of things, you know. So it was a wonderful experience and a good event, but good meet with the many classic car owners. I did see the couple again at the end of the event, but this was at the end, and they just finished meeting up their friend. I did get a quick hello, and then a quick conversation. It was quick goodbye. We'll talk again soon. Hope to see you next year. Something like that. you know. And they gave me, and the wife and the husband gave me a friendly wave as they left Madeira Drive, because I watched them go and I was waving to them, and they both gave me a kind wave to me, and that was really very, very nice, I must say. You know, and in a way I feel like I made a newfound friendship with them, you know. So, and that was a nice time, and all the other classic car owners, whenever I saw them go, I gave them a wave, and sometimes they give me a wave if they saw me. You know, so it was a wonderful, wonderful event, and then I met some people who were observing some parked classic cars yet to leave, the very remaining few before they left, and we were talking a little bit about it. I was like, oh, just say it'll quite likely be taking place this time next year, just to say, and it generally takes place every year, and they were astounded with my knowledge of the event, because they didn't know about the event at the time. This was right at the end of the event, and I was talking to them and all that. And so yeah, and that was yes. So there were good experiences. It's not just seeing the classic cars at any classic car event or vintage rally event or that. It's not all about seeing the classic cars, vintage vehicles or vintage organs or vintage sites and things. Those events, I must say, are breeding grounds for socialisation as well as, you know, the purpose of seeing the classic cars, vintage vehicles, and anything heritage and vintage related. They are also breeding grounds for socialisation as well, if I dare might point out. You know, just to say. And then over the next 3 weeks, it was the Broyle Vintage event. David, I think he was going to go, but then there was another event he got recommended to go to instead, but never mind. I went to the Broyle event, and this was shortly after my birthday. I went a few short days after my birthday, which was later in June of 2023. Went to the event, the Broyle event, and I even met my good friends, Jack and Mick, who are from Hove Park Miniature Railway. I gave them a friendly greeting as I was in the Broyle, and said my hellos and all that, and if they were enjoying the event, and had a friendly conversation and all that. So it went well, the Broyle event. And so, yes, and all the rest of things. And what's next? Oh, yes. Within the next few short days, or less than a week later, that is when something extraordinary happened. Or when I went to see something incredibly extraordinary. Friday, 30th of June, 2023, I went to see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in the cinemas in Brighton. Oh my goodness, did I thoroughly enjoy it. But sadly, that's the last Indiana Jones movie. The fifth and final Indiana Jones film movie installment as a part of the great long 42-year Indiana Jones movie franchise. And that was the final one. But my goodness, did I enjoy it. It was a good final movie to the Indiana Jones franchise. And, you know, really it was. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was brilliant to see Harrison Ford reprising his role as Indiana Jones, the archaeologist, who we all know and love and greatly revere and admire. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge also, and it was fantastic. And I must confess something. May I make my little confession? Okay. Is that I'd always heard the name Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but I had never seen her in any movies before until Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And once seeing her in a movie for the first time, I was deeply and greatly impressed with her performance. You know. So that was really a great highlight after the Broyle event, and it was really quite an event for me, I must say, seeing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And once the movie was over, I walked out of the screen room, and the security guard who encountered me I spoke to the security guard. The security guard asked me a question, and he was like, "How was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?" And I was like, "It was a wonderful movie, but this is it now. This is the final. This is the last one." Just to say, I split that to the security guard. He's like, "That's the final one, is it?" I was like, "Oh yes, yes, that's the last one. Oh yes, it's the last one. The final Indiana Jones movie franchise." You know, and I actually nearly got emotionally invested that it was the final one. But you know, a franchise cannot last forever indefinitely, particularly an Indiana Jones franchise, you know, because the actors will not live forever. Harrison Ford is obviously very old now, over 80 now. And obviously John Rhys Davies, Sulla, Karen Allen, Marion, they're both quite old as well, as truth has things. So that we cannot just keep going on with Indiana Jones forever. Although it would be nice if we could keep it going for many, many more years, but the fifth one is the last Indiana Jones, just to say. But even though Harrison Ford may have retired the role of Indiana Jones and John Rhys Davies may have retired the role as Sulla, and Karen Allen may have retired the role as Marion Ravenwood, they're not retiring, those actors, fortunately enough, and that should, unless something dreadfully serious happened to them. Because actors generally don't retire unless something happens to them health-wise. They generally just carry on acting until they die. This is just what happens with a great many actors and actresses of all ages and all that. You know. Then the very next day I went to the London to Brighton EV electric vehicle rally along Brighton Madeira Drive. My best friend David Scott went. But obviously, though I had deep, deep concerns with my mother at the time, because it was during the time she'd had a cancer scare. But the event made me happy, but obviously I was worried for my mother, as one could imagine. And lo and behold, I ended up meeting somebody who I had encountered at Magnificent Motors. He recognised me and he was shouting a friendly, big, warm hello to me. And he brought his friend with me and we conversed a great many times together. And it was a friendly chemistry. It was a wonderful experience indeed. You know, and I introduced them to David as well, and David even spoke to them. Oh yes, it was a tall, hefty man and a reasonably tall, slim, blonde lady. Both were taller than I was, and certainly taller than that of David. But they were friendly people. I think they thoroughly enjoyed the London to Brighton electric vehicle rally event. So it was a good experience. The very next day, 2nd of July 2023, you know, that was the Eastbourne Bus Rally 2023 event. And there I had a great highlighting moment. I met one of my friends who I'd befriended from Dave and Sally Abel, and that friend is none other than my good friend Bill. Bill, who is a faithful cat owner of a wonderful black and white cat called Meg, and a skink owner, and is very good with animals, you know. And we had the great fortune of meeting up for the first time, having seen each other in Dave and Sally's content for more than 3 years previously, before finally meeting up at the Eastbourne Bus Rally 2023 event. When we met, it was literally a moment of, "A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. Its energetic beast shall be ready to resist the good people. His eyes should flash when I hear his fall." It was literally the Gilbert and Sullivan moment. It was literally a moment of, "A British star is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird." Sorry. Sorry about that, it was a bit draining, vocally draining, but it was alright. Oh yes. No, it really was a British tar is a soaring. No, I won't do it again. No, it was really that Gilbert and Sullivan exciting. A British tar is a soaring soul, moment as free as a mountain bird. His energetic beast to be ready to resist the good people. Yes, a British tar is a soaring soul, extreme as a mountain bird. His energetic beast to be ready. It really was that moment of joy when it all happened. It really was. And I was extremely elated to have met Bill for the first time in over 3 years since we first found out about each other. And he was really quite, in a way, I think he was over the moon to have met me. And we both shared what a good experience it was meeting each other, you know. And we had a few bus ride excursions, and he even got to meet David Scott, my best friend. And David was happy to have met him as well, you know. Even though I do feel sorry for Bill regarding his terrible health ordeals and things, I won't say what it is because it is personal to Bill himself. We really happily got on, and our friendship relationship certainly worked out incredibly well. I really must say, it really, really did. Then the next following week, it was the Parham Park event. On Sunday, 9th of July 2023, I went there. And it was fun, great fun to have gone to. And lo and behold, much to my surprise, Peter Mackett. I ended up seeing Peter Mackett. Because, I accidentally got a video shot of him when I was taking a video of Parham Park Rally, the 9th of July 2023. And Peter Mackett, who'd ended up watching the video, he was like, that was me in the video. And I was like, and I didn't even know it was him. And little did I know he was attending the Parham Park event. I was surprised when learning this. Oh my goodness, I was like, Peter, I didn't know you were attending Parham Park. You know, no, but it was a good event, wonderful organs to see, the steam vehicles, classic cars at Parham Park. It was tremendously great fun. But if Peter is attending Parham Park in 2024, I will really try and look out for him, because he went to Parham Park and I didn't even know I'd seen him, and I didn't even know he was attending. But never mind. Oh well. Then obviously within the next couple of weeks, it was the family gathering, which was a nice successful moment. And over the next week after the family gathering, you know, it was the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show. And that 2023, which took place on Saturday, 29th of July, 2023. Goodness, was it great fun. And it was the first time I'd went. And oh my goodness, was it thoroughly enjoyable. I went from about the early afternoon and staying there until the very concluded end of the very event. And goodness, did I have a greatly enjoyable time. You know, my best friend David Scott went there. I think he got there shortly after I got there, and then he left a bit earlier than I left. So we both had a good time. We got our fair share of videography footage of the very event. So it was a good event. Wonderful things going on. Lots of classic cars. I even posed inside and out of some classic cars. I didn't really go into small ones with the roofs built over, but I sat in about a couple of classic convertibles and have a picture of me standing beside a classic car. I think it was a Bond Equip I was standing beside, and the picture of me standing beside it is nothing more than truly treasured to me. It's a treasuring photographed picture of me, greatly treasuring indeed to me, I must say. Valuably, greatly treasuring. Enormously. and I met some very good, nice classic car owners, and there's a picture of me sitting in a red classic convertible. I was sat next to the owner's mother in the classic convertible. She wasn't looking at the camera, but that's all right. I wasn't expecting her to, but there was me sitting in the driver's seat of it. Which fortunately, well, it was quite tricky to get in and out of it because of height and weight, but it was not as tricky but had it had a roof built over it, would have been a lot more difficult to get in and out of, owing height and weight, that is. All I had to do was, just be careful I didn't fall face first into the gear stick and floor pedals. That's all. But other than that, I had a nice time sitting inside it. The owner was very friendly, but it wouldn't have been a problem for her or her mother to get in and out because they were actually shorter than 5'6". The owner, she had to have been about maybe 5'4.5", 5'5", something like that, and also she was fairly petite in structural figure. But nice looking, I must say, and she was very friendly, very kind, and we had a nice friendly conversation together and all that, And then I had a great big surprise at the later on into the event. And that great big surprise I had was seeing a huge classic car that turned out to be of British manufactured make, but I mistaked it for being a British Chevy, because it had the shape of a Chevy car, though the only difference was that its driver's seat was on the right-hand side of the seating area and not on the left-hand side. And I was deeply, deeply surprised. I was like, this has got to be a British Chevy, until I was told otherwise by the owner. A huge British classic car owned by a very tall elderly couple, who had to have been, no shorter than 5'10" and a half, 5'11", something like that. I think the wife was about probably no shorter than 5'11", something like that, so quite a tall elderly British couple with a huge British classic car, because a lot of the British classic cars I've seen are quite small, really quite small ones, but that one was huge for a British classic car. And I said, do you know who the owner was when I was talking to the lady? Quite tall, and, well, not only was she quite tall, but she was huge as well. No offence. Well, I'm not going to go any further because that would be painfully wrong if I did that, but she was not only really quite tall, but really quite a big build, quite a heavy set build. Little bit overweight maybe, but quite a very, very heavy, tall and very heavy set build, probably no smaller than like 14, 15 stone, I would imagine, something like that. Well, I never asked her weight measurements because that would have been rude if I did that. But when seeing her, she had to have been at least 14, 15 stone, something like that, and no shorter than 5'11", something like that. She had generally big proportions, very heavy set and big structural, figural bodily proportions. And much to my surprise, she'd actually brought her family with her. I think one of her sons and one of her daughters, one of her grandchildren, obviously her husband, they'd all came along to the event. And that was, so obviously they were having a nice time together. But even though it was namely for a family moment they were having at the event, she was inclined to talk to other people, other spectators and classic car enthusiasts who were attending and spectating and observing the very event itself, as she did with me. We had a nice, lovely, conversed conversation together, and I even shared with her the disadvantages of classic cars, being able to get in and out of them owing to height and weight. And she was really in quite total agreement with me on it, because she once had a small classic Mini and she could not tell me how painfully uncomfortable it was for her to drive it, because she said in her prime day she was a full 6 foot. as a younger lady before shrinking down to around about 5'11", 5'11.5", as she so believed. But I would have thought she was about 5'11", something like that. Probably no taller or shorter than that. No, but and this was an older lady. And many people, you might see many people saying, oh, all the elderly people, many people expect elderly people to be shorter or not very tall. But that's quite wrong. You do get tall elderly people as well. You get taller and short people of all ages, It's not just elderly people or older people who are fairly short. We get fairly short people of all ages, and it's not just younger people who are tall or reasonably tall. You get reasonably tall and very tall people of all ages, from young to elderly. Even though it may have been unusual or not terribly expected in their prime day, it was not it was not unheard of, just to say. A little bit irrelevant, but I thought I might share that just to make a point. But we had a friendly conversation together, and she did, and she kindly corrected me about the classic car, that it was not a British Chevy, it was a different make, but obviously it was huge for a British classic car. And I think she was like, in a way, I would have been able to get in and out of it easily, without a doubt, as would the nice lady and her husband or her family, because she had a very tall son who was well over 6 foot, and I think one of her children was about my height, one of the daughters, and I don't know how many children she has, I'm not sure. But because they were all quite tall, I think, and because she had the uncomfortable experience of driving a small vintage classic Mini, I think, in a way, that classic car of hers, and also I think she said she and her husband had possessive ownership of a few large classic American cars. I think that classic car and the large American classic cars, I think she'd had either one or two, she and her husband. And I think it was like a godsend for her, really, or her husband. I don't know about that or not, but I think it made it easier for her and her husband to clamber inside and out of the classic cars, as well as her children, since they all overshot the 5'6" range. Not only was she taller than I am, but she was certainly a lot bigger, as was the husband and the son too. No, but we had a friendly conversation. It lasted for about... It was just before she was about to leave the event, she and her husband. We had about a nice 5-minute conversed conversation together, and we said our exchange a friendly goodbye and all that. And then about 5 or so minutes later, the classic car pulled out of the event, and her son, sitting in the front seat of the car, gave me a wave and stuck a thumbs up at me. And I gave a nice wave. The husband didn't wave, but I don't blame him, because he had to concentrate on getting the car out of the Worthingstein Gardens site. But the wife, sitting in the back with, I think, one of her grandchildren, gave me a friendly wave, and I gave her a friendly wave too. So it was a nice encounter, and though there was likely a profoundly large age difference between us, the friendship, I don't know if it really was a newfound friendship, but I felt a sense of newfound friendship with her, and I felt a sense of bonding too, and we got on well. So somebody tell me how it worked out, how a conversation was together. And she even said, well, you represent... I can't remember what it was, but she said something like, I represent... that my personality epitomised a representation of a gentleman, I think it was, something like that. And that was very nice of her to have said that about me. It really, really was. It was quite moving, I must say. It really, really was, and I'm tremendously thankful. So if I do next see her again, in the future, I would definitely have a lot of thanking gratitude towards her. No, really, I would. In the way I have a thanking gratitude and a thankful, grateful nature towards Graham and Fiona, I would have more or less a similar sort of thing to her. I really would. So it was a good experience, worth talking to her and all that, and certainly with any classic car enthusiast. And she also said, but I was worried I was talking to her at a bad moment when we first encountered each other. And it's like, oh no, don't worry. We're all nice and friendly around here. And as she said, I was like, that's very nice, but I didn't say it to her, but I was like, I did slightly think otherwise, but I more or less believed her when she said we're all nice around here. I believed her that she was very nice with a nice personality she'd possessed in herself and all that. So it was a good meet, it really was. I must say, it was a fantastic meet, really. You know. So, the very next day, you know, it was the Worthing Sunny Sunday American Car Rally Revival. I think that's what it is. It was the American Custom Classic Car Event and Sunny Sunday Revival. That was the first event I was to be attending, as it coincided with that of the Worthing Bus Rally 2023 event. You know, which was great fun. So, sorry, there's gonna a little interval for the moment, and then there'll be the continuation. Sorry about that, everybody. I had to do something quickly, but I'm back now representing the video. Okay. Yes, we were at the Worthing Sunny Sunday Custom American Revival. I think that's what it is, or have I got the event titling mixed up? Never mind. It was the first time I had ever attended this event. I only spent about half an hour to an hour observing the event. And when I got to the event, there I met my wonderful new friend Bill. Well, we'd been friends for about the last 3 years, but this was the second time we'd ever met. And he enjoyed the event, and I enjoyed the event as well. We observed all the American classic cars together, and obviously once we'd finished observing, we both were to be walking to the Worthing Bus Rally 2023 event together. You know. So, we observed the classic cars together, and certainly did we have a thoroughly enjoyable time together when we saw it. I think Bill very much liked the event, as did I too. And David did observe the event as well, but I think he got there at a later time than I did. So, I didn't see David at the American Sunny Sunday Revival, Custom and Classic American Cars Sunday Revival event, but we did, however, meet as the Worthing Bus Rally 2023 event progressed onwards. So I only spent about half an hour to an hour at the event, myself and Bill did, and then we subsequently proceeded to get to the Worthing Bus Rally event, and I directed him the way to walk to where the event was taking place. And then when we got to the road closed area, that was where we knew the bus rally was taking place. And there we are. We made it. And once we got into the rally zone, myself and Bill just got thrown into the fun, savouring every thrill, every thrilling glory of fun when attending the very event itself. Goodness, did we just get thrown into the fun. And Bill just got thrown into having some nights on some of the very old vintage buses that partook in the Worthing Bus Rally events that were doing the excursion tours and all that. No, but honestly, I feel deeply guilty for not joining Bill on the bus excursion tours. I really should have done it, but Bill, if you're watching, in Worthing Bus Rally 2024 we shall definitely do a bus excursion tour together. We really should. No, really we should this time. And we'll possibly invite David Scott and hopefully Jonathan Clements as well. Jonathan Clements, that is, if they'd like to join us too, if they can make Worthing Bus Rally 2024 event, that is. You know. But here is a highlight of Worthing Bus Rally 2024. There, little did I know until there was an elderly looking man, really quite frail, skinny, and reasonably tall, roughly 5'10", something like that, and he must have been around about 8.5, 9 stone, or 119, 126 pounds, something like that. He must have been somewhere about 120, 126 pounds in weight, something like that, or 8.5, 9 stone, and around about 5'10", so he was quite a tall man, and he was elderly looking, but he did tell me how old he was eventually. He walked up to me and asked if I did the videos and all that, and what content I provide, and I said I said, well, I do provide this, and yes, I provide it and all that, and I didn't know he followed my content, because I'd never seen him comment on it. He said, I like the videos you do of the buses in Brighton Old Stein, and your videos of your cat Daphne and all that. I was like, oh, well, thank you very, very much. This is extremely kind of you. Thank you. Thank you so much indeed. I was grateful towards him, to all the friendly things he had to say about my content. No, and he was like, and that man was Jonathan Clements. That was my first encountering with Jonathan Clements himself. And even though we just met, we immediately went on an old bus together for a bus excursion tour. And goodness, did we enjoy ourselves. Not only did we have some friendly chats and a laughing giggle or two together, we even had some chats with other people talking to us as well on the bus. It was quite an enjoyably fun and delightfully enchanting experienced moment we had together, I must say. Although I do feel very sorry for poor Jonathan in other areas too. I'm not going to say why, because it is deeply personal what happened to him a long time ago, health-wise. And it looked like the after effect he's had has left him quite aged, and also quite visibly frail when looking at him. I don't know if he is frail or not, but he had a very frail look. But he definitely weighed at least, I would certainly say he was at least 2 stones smaller than I am, even though he's taller than I am. I mean, I don't know what his height is or weight measurements are, but he had to have been about 5'10", something like that. But his weight had to have been about 120, 126 pounds, something like that. So really quite a skinny but tall old man, or fairly elderly man. That is, but he was tall, he could talk and things, he was walking and talking. And he had a good full head of hair, I must say. He probably had about as much hair as I've got. I mean, I've got a full head of hair. He had probably just as much as I did. It was actually not long, but it was really quite round. He had sort of covered his ears, the hair, but it wasn't like very long shoulder-length hair. No, it wasn't that long. He had more hair than what I've got, that's what I would say. And he also, like David Scott, my best friend, he reminded me of my wonderful late grandfather Edmund. But the only difference was he did not have Edmund's hazel eyes. I don't know what colour eyes Jonathan Clements's are, but I think he's got green. They look to be very bright green, his eyes. I think, because Edmund had hazel eyes, my wonderful late grandfather. As does one of my wonderful friends too, as she's got lovely hazel eyes as well. Very, very, very like that of Edmund, my late grandfather's, because not only are the colour of her hazel-coloured eyes distinctive, they're brightly coloured as well, like that of Edmund's was. His were brightly coloured, just like hers. But, yes. So, and Jonathan, I had the good fortune of encountering Jonathan, and Jonathan seemed very, very happy to have encountered me. He did eventually comment on my channel, and because he did eventually create himself a YouTube account, but he's not uploaded any videos on there as of yet. But that's okay, not to worry, not to worry. And Jonathan, I mean, he's not terribly, I'm not going to say where he's located, because that would be quite bad, and I'll probably get into trouble with one of my friends if I were to say. So I'm not going to go down that path. I'm sorry, everybody. But I'm hoping to see Jonathan again at Worthing Bus Rally 2024 event, or very possibly the Worthing Lions Classic Car event. I'm really hoping he'll attend it, but never mind if he doesn't, but hopefully he does. And hopefully I'll see Jonathan at also, not just Worthing Bus Rally 2024, but Worthing Lions Classic Car Show 2024, just said, or the Worthing American Custom Classic Car Sunday Revival 2024, and hopefully as well at the Worthing Minis by the Sea 2024 Classic Car Show 2024 event. Hopefully he'll go to those 4 events, let's hope, but I shall see what Jonathan himself will decide for himself. It's certainly not a bother and certainly not an issue if he does not want to go to those events except for Worthing Bus Rally. Well, never mind if he doesn't make any of the events, because he could have other important things going on in his life for when the events happen at the time. We never know. But we are certainly going to meet again one day, myself and Jonathan, and definitely will we have another laughing giggle of moments and some silly fun and funny silly comedy and all that, and really just to relish the thrill of what we both enjoy doing whenever chance allows for the two of us. Yes. And I know, because obviously he does generally visit or try and see his ex-girlfriend from time to time, who is actually no, I'm not going to say I'll get into trouble with my friend. No, I don't want that, no. But I like her, I would be in trouble with her for the right reason, because she's a good friend, and she cares deeply about people. She really does. And this is a new friend I'm referring to, who I befriended from Graham and Fiona's content, just to say. This one, So Worthing Bus Rally 2023 was a highlighting event, I must say. It really, truly was. And then over the next week, on the 6th of August 2023, Worthing Bus Rally 2023, sorry I skipped ahead, it was the 30th of July 2023, just to say. Then 6th of August 2023 was the Tinkers Park Rally event, which I attended, and certainly did I relish the thrill in attending it. And I did relish the thrill in attending it, but I had to be careful because I'd recently pulled a muscle by that point. But it's fine now. The muscle I pulled is more than completely fine now. I was recovering. I was more or less in a good recovery zone, but I'd not completely recovered. So, fortunately I was up and walking around, but I just had to be careful not to take too many chances or push my luck, if you know what I mean, and if one knows what I'm referring to, and all that. So, yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've just about managed to get inside the Gavioli H7 key fairground organ room, but obviously I'll beat a little more carefully than I normally would have because of the recently, at the time, not now, but at the time, the recently pulled muscle. But it was a fun experience and I had an enjoyably wonderful time all the same. I saw my best friend David Scott, had a ride on the narrow gauge and miniature railway there. So, and all that. So, it was a good, fun experience I had. It really was. It was truly fun indeed. Indeed, sir. Obviously, certainly did I relish the thrill of listening to the vintage fairground organs, and obviously seeing the classic cars and things, and vintage vehicles, and everything it had to offer. And certainly seeing David Scott, my best friend, and my other friends at the vintage organ as well, I think, So it was great fun, I must say. Then the next week, afterwards, it was the 2023 Tenterden Bus Rally event, which took place on Sunday, 13th of August 2023, which was fun when going to it. And there, the highlight there was I met someone whose father-in-law, who was actually at the event itself, had brought a Routemaster bus he had saved from scrap. I was deeply, deeply fascinated with the story his daughter-in-law shared with me. I was so fascinated. I was like, oh my goodness, that's just wonderful. Well done for what he did. No, I was over the moon and very, very impressed with the commitment he did and all that. No, really I was. We had a nice conversation about it. It lasted for about 5 or 10 minutes or so, something like that. So it was a deeply, deeply interesting conversation we had. But other than that, it was fun seeing all the buses at the event itself. And as well, because it was beside Tenterden railway station at the Kent and East Sussex Steam Railway, being that starting point of it, I even also saw the steam engines running in the background as well, which was also a good experience too. An experience of added fun, if I dare might point out, you know. So once that was over, it was time to go home. And once I was on my way home, I had the pleasure of meeting an extraordinary person, and this was just before I got home, but before I got off at the last station I needed to get out at. Which I helped her a bit, because I didn't want her to get caught into the Sunday nightlife of potential trouble, so I kept an eye on her and looked out for her at all cost until I had to get off the train, because she was going a great deal further than I was. And little did I know, until we were talking and got talking together, was none other than an interesting, and little did I know she had made a name for herself and was at some kind of fame. It was none other than that of Vasilisa Forbes, and she's interesting, and I'm proud of her. I'm very proud of the work she's done, and the videography and video directing she'd done. I mean, she's made an impressive name for herself. She's got an IMDb page, and I was impressed with all she had to do. So really, it's a well done to her, well done to Vaz, good. And it was a good conversation we had, you know, regarding certain things, video directing or videography, interesting, and photography, that sort of stuff. And the bike make she had, which was Apollo, which made me think of the Apollo landing, 1969. So we had a conversation little on that, but namely just photography, bus journeys, vintage, at least that sort of stuff. It was a good meet. Even though I wanted to make sure she was safe from Sunday night life trouble, it was an overall, it was a good meet we had. It really was. Then over the next, and then we exchanged our goodbyes, a nice friendly handshake, and that was it, whooshed off the train. Oh, and she had an interesting, distinctive look, nice full head of blonde hair, quite tall. I think she had green eyes. I think it was green, as far as I'm certain. And a very nice reddish maroon leather jacket, top and blue-coloured jeans. And in a way, she could have made a good role in a Grease movie or a Grease production when seeing her. She had that distinctive look for a Grease Broadway production, you know. No offence to her, but, you know, it was a interesting, captivated, distinctive look she had. You know, either could she have been a good role in Grease or a production that has a genre like that, comparable of Grease or anything fairly similar to that. But, you know, she had that interesting 1950s look, you know, with that an interesting leather jacket, an interesting top and the jeans to go with it, and the shoes as well. Really, it was interesting. But other than that, it was a nice conversation we had about things and all that, you know. But I didn't want to see her in trouble, because there sometimes too much trouble can happen on Sunday night life, you know. But it was a nice newfound friendship we sort of possessed. You know. What's next? Oh yes, over the next couple of weeks, Headingley Festival of Transport, in which I went on both the 26th and 27th of August 2023. David, however, did not go to the Headingley Festival of Transport 2023 event, but hopefully he'll make the 2024 one, if chance allows for him. as he went to a different event, which obviously impressed that none other than Tommy Gardiner, our good friend. He's not only my good friend, he's also David's good friend as well, Tommy Gardiner is. You know. So, yes. But he had a good time, and the video he did of the event he went to, obviously in the absence of Headingley Festival of Transport, it looked like he had a good time, and the videography footage of the event came out extremely well. It's well done, David. That was a good event you attended whilst I was at Headingley. Please do not worry if you cannot make Headingley in 2024, which is right now this calendar year, even though it will take place in August 2024. But certainly if you can make Headingley, that's wonderful. I mean, I don't know if I for sure can make Headingley 2024. If I can make it. If I cannot make it, I sadly cannot. But I'll certainly let you know if I can make it, all the same. Okay? Yes. Then that was a fun experience, Headingley Festival of Transport 2023. And I had the good pleasure of meeting the notable policemen again, having seen them at the Headingley Festival of Transport 2022, as one of them reminded me of one of the Sergeant Nicholas Angel from Hot Fuzz, as he's quite notable as a policeman himself, being a PC, that is, which is police constable, by the way. He was a good man. He's a good friendly man. He's good conversations, and he always, talked to people and whoever came across him. We had quite a funny but quite deep conversation about drink driving and all that, and he had obviously dealt with many drink drivers, and the other policeman had dealt with drink drivers as well, and he said people who were saying like 4 times over the limit are really falling over the place. Oh my God. Can you imagine being a policeman dealing with a drunk driver 4 times over the alcohol limit? You're under arrest. Into custody. Oh gosh, that'd be a horrifically horrendous experience. Oh goodness. But it was a good experience, Headingley Festival of Transport 2023, all the same. Then over the next week, it was the Worthing Minis by the Sea 2023 event, and that was a good experience. And I even met somebody, I think it was a young teenager I met, who'd relished the enthusiasm of having a classic mini car himself when he was older. And we had a few, and I was like, oh, how nice. Well, may your wish come true for your adulthood in the future. He was really a very committed teenage boy who really was committed to owning and looking after an old-fashioned Mini. So, yes. So, it was a good experience meeting him and his family. So, that was a good time. And had the great thrill of seeing all the Minis and all that. And I even got to sit inside a few Minis. Obviously I had to be careful to clamber inside and out of the small classic Mini cars, because of height and weight, obviously, as is not surprising if you're 5'8" and 11 stone or 154 pounds, or certainly taller, not to mention. So, even my friend Mary was like, oh, the Mini cars, they're so cute, but I know I wouldn't fit in owing her tall height and weight, probably. Oh dear. Not only with her, but probably her husband too, who's also a tall man as well. And her son and stepsons being tall men as well, so they would obviously have a difficult time to clamber inside and out of a small classic Mini. Just to say, never mind. Yes. Oh yes, and there's something I did skip slightly ahead. But I won't repeat the coverage of the Worthing Minis by the Sea Worthing Minis by the Sea Car Show 2023 event, Sunday 3rd of September 2023. A few short days before that, in the evening hours of Friday, 1st of February 2023, I ended up stumbling across to Graham and Fiona's content, and they were live streaming that very day. And at first it was showing the sunset of the Gibraltar rock side, and then had Graham talking. First it was Graham talking. I mean, at first I didn't really socialise with others. I was just saying hello and making a few comments and things. But much to my surprise, I ended up feeling the trust in talking to people, and it was the first time I was on a live stream, whereas had I done a live stream years ago, I wouldn't have spoken to anyone unless it was maybe a few months or few months later or so. But this time it was the very, very day, and the very first time I was on the live stream Graham and Fiona were doing that very day, and I just got thrown into all the fun it offered and provided. No, really, I just got completely thrown into the fun. Honestly, certainly did I relish the thrill of the live stream fun, and eventually began to socialise with other people, and then there was the conversation brought up about Jaws and all that, and I was like, oh goodness, Jaws really did scare that out of me, because I hadn't said a swear word. I was like, oops, I'm sorry for the Brian Blessed behaviour for swearing. I was like, and then one of my new friends, one of the participants in the live stream, later on to be now a very good friend of mine, who I am very greatly trusting of. I'm greatly trusting of her, alongside a few others I'm greatly trusting of too. She was like, ooh, I love Brian Blessed. I was like, well, I do recommend you. I said, well, Rosie, I do recommend you watch the Brian Blessed swearing compilation. It's very, very funny, as I'd shown it to my best friend David Scott about a year before, and David was like, oh, I was like, ah, yes, Brian Blessed. Oh, what a voice. I didn't know Brian Blessed had sworn that much. It did get a bit crude, yeah. As David pointed out to me back in 2022. Oh, pardon. And Rosie said some very nice things. We conversed, because we spoke of Columbo, because Faye Dunaway was mentioned. And I was like, wasn't she in an episode of Columbo once? Because I had personally seen that episode, and we spoke a little and all that. And one of our friends, later now, a friend of mine who I'm greatly entrusting of now, lovely, lovely Sandra, went on holiday and went to the place where Hot Fuzz was set, as far as what I'd seen in that live stream. And I think Mary was on the live stream as well, but I think she left once I'd really got into full fruition of taking part in the live stream itself. But not to worry. There's no issue whatsoever, because obviously she and her husband do quite a good fun things together, and obviously they've got the cats, Turtle and Moppet. If you're watching Turtle and Moppet, hello, and definitely saying meow 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 to you both. But getting on to the live stream, the first live stream I'd watched, in the hand in grip of Graham and Fiona when they represented it. Faye Dunaway was mentioned, and I was like, wasn't she in an episode of Columbo? Because I'd seen the episode, and then Rosie and we had a conversation about it, and obviously with the Jaws stuff, when she went, ooh, I love Brian Blessed, and we conversed and all that, and I was like, oh, well, thank you, something like that, and we exchanged some nice friendly words to each other and all that, and, and I said, and I think I said something, now you'll have a place after my heart, Rosie, and I shall certainly be thinking of you when I attend the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show event on Sunday, 3rd of September 2023. And she said, oh, well, have fun. And then she was like, oh, my hubby loves classic cars. And I was like, oh, and then I think she said that she had a neighbour who has a classic car. And then I was like, oh, how wonderful. I said, I think myself and your husband, I think we'll get along quite well. And I said, oh, and then she was like, oh, my hubby waves to you across the living room, dining room. That's interesting. I was like, oh, well, I say hello to him back. It was really, we were bonding. It was a true friendship bond, and it was like we'd known each other for probably a while when we were talking. You know, I mean, Graham and Fiona, with the friends they've got, including Graham and Fiona and all the friends they've got, they really have this good technique of talking and socialising with others as if they've already known a person for a long time, even if it's only been knowing somebody for a fairly short period of time, you know. And honestly, when I watched the live stream, I just felt so silly and so foolish for feeling deeply apprehensive about viewing their content after all that Graham had to talk to me about from the past backstory he and Fiona went through and all that. Honestly, but since that live stream, I do not look back anymore. I really don't. I now just get thrown into a. Well, if I can make a live stream. That is, if I can make it, what they're hosting, I just get thrown into the fun, and certainly do I get thrown into watching a certain video of theirs if I'm palpably able to watch the very video and all that. I just get thrown into their fun now. Really, I do. You know, and Graham, you know, because I'm extremely thankful and grateful towards Graham and Fiona, you know, and they've really, you know, Graham really takes me under his wing quite a great deal, and I'm hugely appreciatively thankful and grateful towards him for all of that and all he and Fiona have personally done for me. I'm extremely thankful to them both, and I feel so fortunate. I have never been more fortunate and more thankful and grateful in all my life to have such a wonderful new friends like that of Graham and Fiona, who I am greatly entrusting of, and as well as making friends from their content who follow them. Friends who follow them within their content, I've become greatly entrusting of them and great friends of them. So, I am so thankful to them both. I really, really am. So, it's, there's always been a good. So that live stream, I had a brilliant experience, but I've not finished talking about it yet, you know. And I shared with Rosie, classic cars, I must say, are fun, but the only issue with classic cars is that they are not necessarily built for people who stand over a certain height. And in Graham's story, it was like, Foxy, are you tall? I never came under the impression you were a giant. I said, I am fairly tall, Graham. Yes, I'm 5'8" and 11 stone. And he was like, Foxy, I'm 5'9½". Your height is average, so surely you're not too tall for a car. I said, well, if it's a small classic car, Graham, it's quite tricky to clamber it inside and out, as people were generally shorter back then at the time when they were built. So only the modern day cars and the larger classic cars I can get in and out of without trouble, you know. But I said, but if you were, say, 5'6" or shorter, you'd just be able to get in and out of the older classic cars a lot more easily, you know, and all that. And I think Fiona more or less understood the point I'd made, but I don't think she exceeded a certain height, so she'd be okay to clamber inside and out of a small classic car easily, well, much more easily than myself and Graham would, or any of my other friends from Graham and Fiona's content who have overshot the 5'6" range, or who are taller than the height I am, not surprisingly. Oh dear. But Rosie was like, Foxy, 5'8" is normal height, and 11 stone, certainly not too big. Well, I never said it was overweight. 11 stone for my height is not overweight, but it's just a heavy weight to have. You know, I mean, some of you might disagree with me on it, but that's all right. As Fiona would say, it's perfectly okay to disagree and agree with certain points oneself might make, you know. And that very day of the live stream, I encountered somebody who, oh my goodness, I am now greatly entrusting of. And she is true, and she in a way once said to me, it's too bad we live too far apart to have even met up in person together. And that was treasuring when she said it. It was deeply touching when she said that. It really was heartfelt when she said it to me. It was recently she said it to me, but not on the live stream. I saw her on there and I was I think because she experienced certain troubles personally and all that. When I saw it was she and Sandra. I was like, oh no, oh Sandra, I am just so sorry for your troubles. It's painfully sinister with whatever the pressed issue they were talking about. I said, I'm sorry for your pain and yours too, lovely Tony. I said, I cannot tell you how sorry I am for you. I said, and then I said other things and all that. Tony thanked me, said her thanks to me, and then before long, and she was like, oh, you are a beautiful person. She said that to me, and that was really touching when she said it to me. And we, in a way, as Tony said to, I think, Fiona once, that myself and Tony, we were bonding in the latter part of the live stream from the 1st of September 2023. We were bonding. No, really, she said we bonded in that live stream. It was the latter part of that live stream. We were truly bonding together. Oh, yes, we truly were, indeed. No, really, we were. She's quite a little bit older than I am, Tony is, just to say, as is Graham and Fiona as well. No offence, we were bonding together. Had some friendly conversations and things, and I even explained to her what I looked like and what people had considered me because of it, and she was like, oh, Foxy, I bet. And then she wants, because she has actually came over to my content, believe this or not, and she saw a picture of me standing beside a classic Mini, and she was like, oh, handsome picture. Well, thank you, Tony, for saying I looked handsome. That was extremely nice of you. Few people say that of me now, but you know what? I'm not bothered. I don't think in a way, Graham, in my philosophy, and certainly a comparable philosophy to what Graham would have, I don't think Graham, and neither would myself, I don't think either of us would be bothered if fewer people think of us as handsome. I think either way, in a similar way Graham would say, whether people think of me as handsome or not handsome, I don't care. But it's a good philosophy to possess. Not terrible, but it's a reasonably good, valid philosophy, I'm always extremely thankful if anyone said, oh my goodness, you're looking quite handsome. And I go, well, thank you very much. That's really nice of you to say that, Well, I think when I was thinner in weight, it was when I was smaller in weight. Because at the time when people used to say, oh my goodness, it happened to be so much in the past, people saying I looked very handsome. But it doesn't happen as much now. But when people used to say I was handsome a lot, or someone saying, oh gosh, wow, you're a very handsome man, I was thinner in weight at the time. At the time, I was only 130 pounds in weight, or 9 stone 4 pounds. But when I put on weight, when I got to 11 stone, or 154 pounds, or 70 kilos in weight, I didn't get it as much. But you know what, I'm not completely bothered, to be honest with you. Eventually, as one gets older, sometimes, not always, not with all, but for some people, the looks begin to fade. It's just the reality of life, as truth generally has things, But whatever one thinks of me, I'm happy with whatever opinions they might have, I'm not bothered with the opinions, certainly not fussed whatsoever. But Tony and myself, we certainly bonded, and then I began bonding not just with lovely Tony, who I'm greatly entrusting of, but to some extent Sandra, but I think the comments went a little too fast for her, which I think she did later on explain to me about. Sorry for my lack of awareness on this, lovely dear Sandra, but I really bonded with Rosie and Susan, Ria, Marcia. I just began socialising and bonding with a very great many others, and that was a wonderfully valuable experience. And even lovely Jodie as well, and Jodie said, my brother says a similar sort of thing about classic cars, but he's 6'4". Oh my goodness, but he's a great deal taller than I am. He definitely would have to be careful to clamber inside and out of a small classic car, without a doubt. And it would be also an additional tightening fit for him. No offence. All the same, I didn't mean any offence and all that. But in continuation, that live stream from Graham and Fiona, when they were representing it, I must say, I just had a ball. I had a complete ball. I had a whale of a time when I was watching the very live stream itself, you know. And then Graham quite a few times ended up representing my content throughout that very live stream. And then before long I ended up gaining quite a good few subscribers shortly after the live stream was over, which was very nice. And that was a kindly gesture to those who partook in the live stream and subscribed. And then after the live stream was over, I ended up hearing from Fiona, and she said some wonderful, wonderful compliments towards me. I think that was me skipping ahead a little. But I had the privileged fortune to have socialised with many wonderful people, from Tony, Susan, Sandra, Rosie, Marcia, Ria, Jodie, so many others to list. There's so many other people who were watching the live stream. It was hard to list them all out, but certainly a great many wonderful ones. I think Mary had just gone by that point at the latter part of the live stream. But then, obviously we already did the coverage of Worthing Minis by the Sea event, so we won't need to repeat it again because I did the coverage talking it. Yes. Here we are. Over the next course of the next few short days, obviously I'd heard from Fiona by that point and she'd subscribed to my content. Fiona, within the next few short days, did a video saying her thanks to her subscribers and all that, and believe this or not, ended up representing my content in it. And shortly after she represented my content, floods and floods and floods of new subscribers began pouring into my channel in huge quantities, hugely large quantities, just shed loads of subscribers just poured right in. And in within a few short days after, I just reached 2,000 subscribers by that point. But then by that point I ended up having 2.1k within a few short days later, which I was truly not expecting to receive so many subscribers after Graham and Fiona represented me after I took part in that live stream. I mean, although I was not expecting it, I'm extremely thankful and grateful for it. I really, really am. But one of my friends was not terribly impressed with it. It was Dave Bryan, who was not terribly impressed and quite shocked. He was like, "What? 2.1k subs? That's not fair. I didn't know it was going to happen." And, you know, I don't think he was being serious by that. I think he was just surprised with what had happened. That's all. You know. So, yes. And then within the next few short days later, I ended up getting more than... It peaked at around about 2.79, 2.8k subscribers, which was when it peaked. And oh my goodness, am I tremendously and greatly thankful for that huge subscriber milestone less than 1 week after receiving 2,000 subscribers. I never expected something like this to happen, but there we are, it's happened, and I'm extremely grateful for it. You know, I'm profoundly grateful, profoundly thankful and grateful, if I might say, and never could I have expected something like this, you know. Who was behind my subscriber increase was not just Graham and Fiona, but then it was also Trevor Court, and Trevor Court himself. Fiona was the one who represented my content to Trevor. Trevor watched it, and he gave his review, then he ended up representing my content in one of his videos, and he said he was surprised with how my content came out, because he was expecting something quite different, but he considered me, in a way, kindly an intelligent guy, and I was certainly not expecting this from him. You know, and I was extremely thankful to Trevor, No, really, really, I am. I'm extremely thankful and grateful to Graham, Fiona, Trevor, and also Hutchie and Mel from the Fitness Hutch channel as well. You know, because then I began watching one of Trevor's live stream videos, and he represented me in that live stream, and he regarded me as Basil Fawlty, but the only difference is that I'm the new Basil Fawlty who has got brains, where the original Basil Fawlty does not have the brains, much to my surprise when he said this. But before that live stream, if I may have skipped ahead as I've been doing a lot, there was a live stream. It was a silent live stream of Gibraltar Graham was representing, and one of my wonderful new friends, Murphy, who was on, she said, "Well done, Foxy. Graham, Fiona and Trevor have done you proud." I was like, "Oh, well, thank you so much for your friendly comments and your courteous sincerity." And she's a friend now who I'm very greatly entrusting of. I've got 5 wonderful new friends from Graham and Fiona's content who I am greatly entrusting of, and 6 wonderful new friends of mine from Graham and Fiona's content who I'm greatly trusting of. I couldn't be more thankful to Graham, Fiona and Trevor and Hutchie and Mel, And I'm just so fortunate with all the wonderful new friends I've made from Graham and Fiona's content. I could never leave them behind. I would, honestly, I now feel so fortunate to have found that Graham found out about my content, and now that I follow his content and all the people who follow his and Fiona's content, and then since finding out about Graham and Fiona, I've had the privilege of being introduced to Trevor Colt, who is a wonderful, wonderful and heroic decorated war veteran, who I have a great deal of respect towards for his years of service and for fighting for one's freedom and all that. So well done, Trevor. Very well done indeed. And as a result of Graham and Fiona, the 5 wonderful friends and only 5 wonderful new friends who I'll be greatly entrusting of are none other than that of Tony Stark, Mary Ipock, Sandra Parrott, Murphy, and Tudor Rosie. And the 6 wonderful friends from Graham and Fiona's content who I'll be greatly trusting of, and only 6, are none other than that of Susan Reich, Michelle Pope, Elaine Williams, Caroline Allen, Rosie's Cottage, and Catherine T. Honestly, and not only am I greatly entrusting of you 5, being that of you Tony, and you Mary, and you Sandra, you Murphy, and also you Rosie, certainly am I always going to be greatly entrusting of you 5, and I will always love you, and I will always be thinking very, very fondly of all 5 of you. And with you 6, regarding you wonderful 6, being you Susan, Michelle, Elaine, Caroline, Rosie and Catherine, certainly will I always be greatly trusting of you, and I will always love all of you, and I will certainly always be thinking fondly of you. And with all 11 of you in total, I couldn't be more fortunate or more thankful and more grateful to have a wonderful, wonderful newfound friendship with you all. It truly means a lot to me. It means from the bottom of my heart, it means a lot. I'm not going to cry, but I'm truly wishing I'd known about the 11 of you a very, very, very long time before 2023. It means a lot. And if we ever meet up in person in the future, goodness, will it be a treasuring moment. We'll have a laughing giggle and some wonderful fun, and certainly very many great big nice long hugs in the greetings as well, and other fun excursion stuff, and a nice few things and outings as well. And of course, after the Worthing Minis by the Sea event, it was the Norton Autumn Rally, the final day, 10th September 2023, which I went to, and that was a great event. even though it was just at the end of a heat wave, it was still quite hot. I had to only wear a light jacket, but I didn't need a jumper, luckily. But obviously it did get quite considerably colder in the evening. And then as the next week, new week came along, it was cold. So it was a fun event, but I was like, oh, it's the last one, 2023, got to wait till 2024. But it was the day Graham and Fiona were live streaming, but they were already well into the live stream by the time I got in. It was the very latter part of that live stream I got in, and Graham was like, oh, Foxy's channel has shot right up. He was kindly representing me once I came in. And then Fiona ended up saying some nice things about me, and Graham said some nice things about me, and then he gave me a recommendation, which was, to shoot a few selfies. And since then, I've got thrown into shooting selfies of myself and putting them on the community post, which I think in the future I'm going to do maybe about 3 or 4 times a month, put a selfie on the community post, because it really does help in every way. Shooting a selfie and putting it on the community post, it really does do quite a lot of good, I must say. It really does. It does well for the channel, and it's generally quite received well. I'm not trying to boast, but from the experience I've seen, it's done me quite well so far. And I'm definitely going to continue with the pursuance of that in the future, to pursue it in the future and all that. Then over the next few weeks, it was my brother's birthday. We had a nice gathering. It was a family gathering for my brother's birthday. And then the next day I went over to my grandmother's and spent the night there before subsequently heading back home. And then within the next week or so, it was Tinker's Park, being the final 2023 event running badge, which I made. And some of my friends who had seen, they're like, oh, you made it. I said, it means a lot to me to have made the last one of this year. And then here it is, 2024, and that sort of thing. Certainly did I relish the thrill of going to their final 2023 event, with, the vintage organs, listening to them, riding the narrow gauge and miniature railways, seeing the classic cars and all that. It was great, great fun. But obviously a bit emotionally moving, since it was their final 2023 event before their 2024 event proceedings. Then the next day, it was the Eastbourne Wheels on the Waterfront event, which I went to. I just made the last ones, but it was fun, and I had quite a big encounter with one of the classic car owners. He was like, oh, it's you again, and I was like, oh. It was like a Shaq and Kevin Hart moment, and I was like, this reminds me of a Shaq and Kevin Hart moment, and then I showed the guy the video, and he nearly pissed himself with laughter when I showed him the video of Shaq and Kevin Hart in that video, and he was like nearly pissing himself with laughter, and we just laughed as we... Honestly, it was a funny encounter. Brilliant stuff. Bye. Oh goodness. It was a bit of a quite an encounter, like anything you say, or okay, well, you're doing this, that, and then anything you say. We weren't being serious if we were ever having like a cross encounter. He wasn't really cross, it was just a bit of banter, really, to some extent, really, Anything you say, you hold up the authority. Well, if my mother had ended up encountering Shaq and she was in a situation where Shaq pulled her over and arrested her, my mother would just be like, anything you say, Shaq, anything you say, because he's so huge and considerably bigger than what she is. Let alone well over a foot taller, not to mention, Yes. And then the next week it was Hastings Classic Car Show, and that was the first time I'd been, and that was great fun. Certainly did I enjoy it, especially with it being the first time going, and met some nice people and people spectating, or classic car owners. And I even sat in a few classic cars at the time at the very event too, I must say. Obviously being careful height and weight, not to have an accident or hurt myself, or to get in fairly easily. It was a good experience. Then within the next week it was the Brighton Toy Museum Model Rail event. That was tremendously fun, not only seeing the model railway in action, but also meeting other people who had attended too, and having conversations with them and all that, you know. Oh, and by the way, David did go to the Hastings Classic Car Show event, just to say. But the model rail event at Brighton Toy Museum, 14th October 2023, was a good event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And definitely am I looking forward to going to their next model rail events in 2024. And then the next day, 15th October 2023, was the Hastings Spratt and Winkle HCVS Run event, and myself and David Scott both happily attended it. And it was great fun, and we certainly thoroughly enjoyed ourselves when we went. Obviously it was very, very cold. Although it was very sunny, it was very, very cold. It was frozen cold. Nearly frozen winter cold that day, and obviously I needed my big gloves and a great big scarf, but I should have worn a different coat when I went. Well, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, never mind, and bigger corduroy trousers, something like that, you know. Yes, and then over the next few weeks there were no more events, until the 5th of November 2023, which was mine and David's final classic car running event, being the London to Brighton Veteran Car Run 2023. Sunday, 5th of November 2023, we saw it along the Brighton Madeira Drive. And it was a good encounter, a good event. I met some very interesting spectators while seeing the event rolling into action itself. You know, met some interesting people I was talking to and had the privilege of meeting. And I said, just to say, well, I said to some, this is not the only event that takes place in Madeira Drive. You get quite a good few others as well, just to say. And some were astonished with my knowledge of it. I was like, they're like, wow, very interesting. Yes, we'll look into it. Thank you for telling me. I said, okay. I said, pleasure indeed. You enjoy the event. Goodbye. We'll talk soon. That sort of thing. So in a way, these events are not just about seeing the cars, classic cars or vintage vehicles in action. It's also about the breeding grounds of socialisation as well. And I really do think that these classic car running events, vintage rally events, classic car rally shows, vintage rallies events and things, they really should be well promoted and well represented as breeding grounds for socialisation, as well as being good events to see, to go to more or less travel back in time, seeing the vintage side of things, and as well as encouraging the breeding grounds of socialisation. I truly have this firm belief with these events. I truly, truly do. I stayed from more or less start to finish with the London to Brighton Veteran Car Run event. By the time the event was over, the skies darkened completely. Completely dark skies, and it was time to walk back to the bus stop to get the bus back home. And then within the next few weeks, it was my final event for 2023. The final 2023 event I had was the Brighton Model Rail event, which took place on Sunday of the 19th of November 2023, and that was a fun event to have gone to. It really, really was. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I even met the classic car owners who I'd seen at the Hastings Spratt and Winkle HCVS event, coincidentally. And we had a nice encounter, a nice few chats and all that. They enjoyed the event, and I even gave them one of the leaflets to tell them when the Hove Park Miniature Railway was to be running, and they took an interest in going in the future. The lovely couple, very nice, friendly, lovely couple, and I very much like them, I must say. And we sort of bonded with socialisation quite well, you know. Yes, those are more or less the highlighting events with the events for 2023. Obviously there was the good, relishing thrill of occasions for Eastbourne Miniature Steam Railway, Hove Park Miniature Railway, a few rail train spotting expeditions from time to time, and also I had the great privilege of meeting some old friends back in June of 2023, being my wonderful old friends Leslie and Edward Davison, who are good friends, I must say. They're friends, good friends of my dear elderly grandmother Anne, who's still alive as of 2024, sorry. and as are Leslie and Edward too. And they had gone through quite a lot of trouble, as did I, with the trouble of my mother's health ordeal and things. And obviously the hard thing just in the run-up to Christmas, but she was fine by the start of the new year, and just before the start of the new year was my mother's ill health ordeal with a respiratory infection illness, which she fortunately recovered from, luckily, just to say. But it was a real fortunate privilege to have met Leslie and Edward again, as this was the first time I had seen them until June 2023. The last time I saw them was in 2016, so the first time in over 7 years. Long time. Okay, what's next? And one brilliant highlighting moment for 2023 was also, well, I said Graham and Fiona and Trevor Colt was a great highlighting moment of 2023. Another great highlighting moment of 2023 in the flashbackable memories was encountering Hutchie and Mel from the Fitness Hutch. I remember the first time I watched them was on the 24th of September 2023. They were live streaming, and I'd more or less been watching them every single week since then. I think I did miss a live stream or two, which they had done, but I've more or less, though I may have missed a few live streams of theirs, I've more or less tried not to miss their live streams, because they're great fun with their live streaming. They really are. And they're good people, I must say. And one good philosophy Hutchie himself has is this great endearing philosophy and brilliant, excellent philosophy, which is achieve your goals. That's a brilliant philosophy oneself should possess in themselves, as we do sort of lack it in a way in this day and age. No offence when saying it, of course, you know. And obviously a great highlighting moment obviously was Graham and Fiona Hesketh, encountering them, as said before, and all the wonderful new friends I've made. Though I may only be greatly entrusting of 5 new friends of mine from Graham and Fiona's content, and as well as only being greatly trusting of 6 from Graham and Fiona's content, all of my friends I've encountered from Graham and Fiona's content, all the friends I've made and those who have subscribed and came over to my content, they are all my wonderful friends, and I'm trusting of them, but just in a different way to how I'm greatly entrusting towards the 5 I'm greatly entrusting of, and different in the way I'm greatly trusting towards the 6. That's all. I'm trusting with them, but just in different bits and pieces. That's all. You know. That's all I had to really say, you know. So, 2023, with all the events and the wonderful new people I've encountered, I must say it's been a specifically wonderful and specially extraordinary year for me. And 2024, I believe, no doubt, will be just as extraordinary, I must say. You know, on the 5th of January 2024, I'm to be live streaming with the wonderful Trevor Colt MC himself, and I'm looking forward to it most thoroughly indeed. And I really do want to thank all of you for 2023, now that it's more or less nearly long gone now. You know, and I really do want to thank you, Graham, Fiona, Trevor, Hutchie and Mel. You just don't know how happy you've made my 2023. My 2023 has been extraordinary, and because of you 5 wonderful people, it's really made my year. Had it not been for you 5, I'm sure my year would not have been as extraordinary as it had been. Thank you so much, Graham, Fiona, Trevor, Hutchie and Mel. Thank you so much indeed. And for you, lovely Tony, Mary, Sandra, Murphy and Rosie, thank you for your wonderful friendship to me. I'm very happy to be greatly entrusting of all you 5, and I love you lots. I love you all lots, the 5 of you indeed. That's to the 5 of you, Tony, Mary, Sandra, Murphy and Rosie, and to you wonderful 6, Susan, Michelle, Elaine, Caroline, Rosie and Catherine. Thank you for a wonderful friendship. You will always be my wonderful friends, who I'll be great, and I'll always be greatly trusting of you. And goodness, I just love you, love the six of you lots. I absolutely love you lots indeed. To all six of you, thank you for a wonderful friendship. And I want to thank each and every one of you for 2023, indeed, everybody. Thanks for watching. And may 2024 be a wonderful year to us all. I'm looking forward to seeing how this year progresses. May it be fantastic and brilliant. Here's to 2024.